Mic check, mic check. Send some reactions, guys, if you can hear me well. Oh, good. Oh, good. Then welcome back to Cryptic Talks, the show where we go beyond the noise to explore the infrastructure shaping the next era of the internet. I'm your usual host, Polly Speaks, managing relations and PR at Cryptic, and today we're diving deep into one of the most ambitious projects in the blockchain space, Zeta Chain, the so-called universal blockchain that's aiming to connect Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cosmos, and beyond under one seamless architecture. In a world where fragmentation, bridges, and isolated ecosystems dominate the crypto experience, Zeta Chain is trying something fundamentally different. A layer 1 blockchain with native cross chain capabilities, smart contract support for non smart contract chains like Bitcoin, and a bold vision for unified Web3. And here with me today to unpack the details of the universal blockchain for Bitcoin and beyond, Alex Kim, ecosystem lead at Zeta Chain. So feel free to unmute yourself, Alex. Give us some heads up on how is your mood today, your background as well, some intro to our listeners.
Hi everyone, great to be here. Um, yeah, great to be here today. My name is Alex, ecosystem lead here at Zeta Chain. Previous to Zeta Chain, I was with BNB Chain for about 2 years, doing BD for them as well across BNB Chain and corp development as well. And then previous, I just did some couple startups with some friends. Some failed, some did quite well. Yeah, and now I've always been a Web3 native, so yeah, very great to be here, sharing the knowledge of it.
Awesome. And how is your mood today?
Good. It's pretty rainy here in New York City, so it's going to rain all week this week.
Well, I hope there's gonna be some sunshine across the week too, not to spoil your mood. But dear listeners, today we're gonna have pretty interesting conversation, and with the experience previously from BNB Chain, I'm sure that we can reveal a lot of different details. And with over 8.5 million users, a growing ecosystem of universal apps, and major partnership like Coinbase, OnRamp, and Google Cloud. This isn't a theoretical white paper. It's real infrastructure in motions. Today's conversation breaks down what makes Zeta Chain different, how its universal EVM and omni-chain smart contracts work, and why universal apps could redefine how we interact with decentralized technology. So, whether you are a developer, an investor, or just crypto curious, this episode will give you a front row seat to one of the most compelling efforts to solve crypto's interoperability puzzle without sacrificing decentralization or user experience. So, buckle up. We're going to unpack what it means to build the universal blockchain for Bitcoin and beyond. And with the first question, with which I want to torture you today, Alex, is like Zchain has been described as a universal blockchain, right? But could you elaborate on what this actually means and the core vision behind it?
Sure. So simply put, for any developer right now, you have to launch multi-chain smart contracts, right? So if you're on ETH and you want to launch on BNB chain, you have to write another smart contract. And if you're a DeFi project, you have to find liquidity for that chain as well. So the universal blockchain is simply eliminating developers having to do separate smart contract deployments on all these chains and finding liquidity for all these new chain integrations. Instead, you launch on Zeta Chain once, you write and launch your smart contract on Zeta Chain just once, and a user can connect their wallets from EVM, even native Bitcoin, and Solana, and you can use your assets as if it's on one chain. You only need liquidity on Zeta Chain, you only need your smart contracts on Zeta Chain, and you can access users from all these connected chains.
That's pretty simple explanation. That's good. So it's not just a marketing tag. It points to a very deliberate architectural and philosophical sense from my point in a blockchain ecosystem. And from my view, the term universal refers to Zeta Chain's ability to natively connect and interact with virtually all blockchains, including both EVM and non EVM chains, and even those without smart contract functionality like Bitcoin. What distinguishes Zeta Chain is how I see it from others is the interoperability space. That it isn't just a breach, it's a layer one blockchain that can directly orchestrate actions across multiple networks through built-in cross-chain capabilities. And that's fundamentally changes the game, because historically interoperability has depended on third-party bridges, wrapped tokens, or cumbersome relays that often introduce security risks or user friction. And your model is more elegant and integrated. It leverages something called omni-chain smart contracts, right? Which are contracts deployed on data chain that can read from and write to contracts on external chains. That makes sense, I hope. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not from a technical experience. I was trying to research today's topic, and I hope that my thoughts not gonna be too dumb. But so the universal part isn't just about technical capability; it's about building the foundational infrastructure that brings coherence to the multi-chain chaos we're living in. And the other chain is trying to replace isn't trying to replace Ethereum or Solana, but trying to make them all work together like never before. And that, if realized, could be one of the most important shifts in crypto since Ethereum introduced smart contracts. That's interesting. But how does the other chain aim to address the challenges of blockchain fragmentation and interoperability in the current crypto landscape?
Sure. So, I mean, I think it's already happening. I think it's actually happening wherever you go. People just choose to ignore it. If you go on any DEXs, or the really great example is GMX, they're natively on Arbitrum, but then once they did a multi-chain expansion into Avalanche and other chains, no one really cared. No one really cared about the users that were on those other chains because the liquidity is the largest and the deepest on Arbitrum. So for GMX, it was most likely a sunk cost, right? They probably got some co-marketing out of it, but it was a sunk cost for them. There's no users coming from those chains because there's no liquidity, there's no money. So users just end up going back to Arbitrum to use GMX on there. I mean, that's pretty much what's already happening in crypto. Even if you look at PancakeSwap right now, do you think you can have the same liquidity of BNB on Ethereum? You can't. BNB, you can really only find on PancakeSwap on BNB chain that has the deepest liquidity for it. So people are already figuring this out. I mean, it's what we're currently using. We're just choosing to ignore it. And every time you want to go to a different chain to swap any one of these assets, you have to create a new wallet, you have to switch networks, and then you have to bridge, etc. Zeta Chain removes all that complexity. There's no bridging required at all. So even when a user bridges from native Bitcoin, I mean, if a user wants to swap from native Bitcoin to native BNB, they can do that in a one-click experience. There's no getting a wrapped version. There's no using that wrapped version, then going to another liquidity pool on a different chain, then bridging it to redeem it. No, everything is completely one click on Zeta Chain. So we remove all that complexity of liquidity fragmentation. We remove that complexity of bridging. We remove the complexity of users having to switch different networks. And you just use an app on Zeta Chain using any wallet from any of our connected chains and use it as is.
Mm-hmm. Interesting point that it's already happening, but we're just ignoring that. That's good that we can acknowledge that in this Twitter space, because no one, not a lot of people can understand that, I think. The blockchain fragmentation is one of the most persistent challenges in the crypto, is like masses can see it. Every major chain has its own ecosystem, developer tools, user wallets, consensus rules, and often its own ideology. This sealed architecture limits composability and splits liquidity, and creates a nightmare for developers who want to build truly universal applications. And you guys take this issue head on with the layer one blockchain that has built in interoperability as a core primitive, not like a plugin or afterthought. I like your vision, how you see it, how you described it in very simple terms. Like, unlike traditional approaches that rely on third-party bridges or relays, which have historically been high-value targets for exploits, the chain employs a unique combination of different signature, I think it calls TSS, and cross-chain message passing mechanism that allows the chain itself to observe and act upon events from external blockchains. This kind of removes the need for external validators or trust assumptions outside of the protocol's own consensus layer. And in tackling this interoperability at the base layer level, you're making a bold architecture statement too. It's like it's not patching fragmentation, it's rethinking how blockchain coordination should work from the first principles. That's a much needed intervention in a space that has too long relied on short-term fixes like token wrapping or centralized bridges. And perhaps most importantly, it does this without demanding that like legacy chains like Bitcoin change their code base or adapt smart contracts, that respect for existing networks coupled with the means to extend their functionality. It's a pragmatic and strategic way to bridge old and new crypto worlds. I love that. But also, you have a concept, universal apps. Can you please explain this to us and to me also, how they differ from traditional decentralized applications?
Yeah, universal apps are not to be confused. They're the same decentralized applications. But universal apps are pretty much what we just talked about, which is you launch one smart contract on Zeta chain, and any user from any chain can use their wallet and access it. So some of the live universal apps that we have on Zeta chain are BeamDex, which is a DEX on Zeta chain. But you can connect your Bitcoin wallet, you can connect your EVM wallets, and you can connect your Solana wallet. And you can swap between native Bitcoin to native Solana. You can swap between native Bitcoin to, I don't know, Ethereum, or you can even swap your native Bitcoin to BNB, all in one click. There's no bridges on Beam. The second universal app that we have is called Amana. So you can deposit into any yield strategy contracts. It's a yield aggregator platform. If there's 5% on AVA, on Ethereum, you can connect your Solana wallet, and you can use your native Solana to deposit into his vault in one click. There's no bridges, and it's just a one-click experience. These are what universal apps are. Compared to traditional decentralized applications where it's the same thing that we just talked about, where you have multiple different networks and you have fragmented liquidity, it's just a one-click experience. Any user from any chain can just use any wallet, and you just click once and you can swap, deposit, whatever.
That's pretty convenient, I would say. And from my perspective, yeah, like universal apps are kind of a new class of decentralized application that can interact with multiple blockchains natively and simultaneously, thanks to the underlying architecture of that chain. And unlike traditional dApps, which are typically confined to a single chain and require manual integration with others via bridges or separate smart contracts, universal apps live on Zeta chain and extend their functionality across any connected network. The distinction here is subtle but really powerful as I see it. Traditional dApps are like desktop software designed for a specific operating system. If you want it to work on another OS, you often need a whole new version. And universal apps, in contrast, are like web apps that work seamlessly across browsers, devices, and platforms because they are built on a universal layer, in this case, data chain. And I think that this unlocks entirely new use cases. Like imagine a lending protocol that accepts ETH and BTC and stablecoins from multiple chains, all managed within one smart contract, right? Or a cross-chain governance style where votes costs in one ecosystem affect contracts in another with no relays or intermediaries. That's the level of native interoperability we're talking about. And I think that there's also a long-term strategic benefit here too. Like by making it easier to build cross-chain, Zeta Chain is essentially encouraging developers to create apps that transcend tribalism. We've seen how chain loyalty can lead to fragmentation and even toxic community behavior, and universal apps could ideally shift the conversation from which chain is better to what does your app do and who does it serve. And I think that moreover in today's market, building on a single chain can be risky. What if that chain loses traction or becomes cost prohibitive? Universal apps mitigate that risk, as I understand it, by allowing developers to access the best features of every chain without locking themselves into one ecosystem. That's optionality at the code level. And in a broader context of the decentralized internet, universal apps could be seen as a multi chain version of the early internet's platform agnostic web apps. They represent a unification layer, not just technically, but also ideologically, sorry, focusing on user utility over chain loyalty. And that's a shift we sorely need in crypto's next evolution, to be sure, to be like, to be honest. But also, I'm interested what kind of a role does the universal AVM play in facilitating these seamless cross-chain interactions, especially with non-smart contract chains too?
Yeah, so the universal EVM is pretty much just Zeta chain, right? So I think you summed it up pretty perfectly with non-smart contract chains like Bitcoin as well. It's just all done through our observer validators, our observer signers. So let's say in the example with the DEX example, user wants to swap native Bitcoin to BNB. The user deposits native Bitcoin on the BNB network. The observer signer validates and observes this transaction that happens. It mints out an equivalent version which gets swapped into BNB, and then BNB is withdrawn from the BNB custody address. All that complexity is just one click. So all the intermediary stuff is happening on Zeta Chain, which is a Zeta Chain EVM. So think of us like the airport hub where we're connecting to all these different airport terminals and different airport hubs and train stops, etc. Everything gets routed through Zeta Chain.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So this universal AVM or UEVM is kind of a technical centerpiece, as I'm understanding it correctly, of the Zeta chain's vision of truly interoperable blockchain infrastructure. And at its core, the UEVM allows developers to write and deploy Ethereum compatible smart contracts on Zeta chain that can like directly interact with assets and data on other blockchains, including those that don't support smart contracts at all, like Bitcoin or I don't know, Dogecoin. This is like monumentally because traditionally non Turing complete blockchains like Bitcoin have been functionally sealed from the smart contract revolution. And as I can see it, Zetachain's UVM overcomes this by serving as a cross-chain execution layer, abstracting away the limitations of individual chains. And I think that listeners, you can think of it as a universal control plane where a developer can build logic that governs Bitcoin or Ethereum or Cosmos assets all from one place. And this changes this paradigm from smart contracts on a chain to smart contracts above the chains, which dramatically enhances both composability and developer agility too. And specifically for Bitcoin, this means for the first time, developers can build decentralized apps that use native BTC without needing to wrap it. So a dApp could, for instance, offer lending, staking, or trading of native Bitcoin orchestrated by a smart contract running on Zeta chain. And that's powerful because Bitcoin is still the most widely held and recognized digital asset globally. But until now, it's been mostly excluded from DeFi without custodial risk or wrapping. And for developers too, this means lower friction, fewer moving parts, and far more creative potential. For users, for example, it's a massive UX improvement. They don't have to jump through multiple hoops or worry about which chain they're using. They can interact with the universal app on their BTC or ETH or stablecoins, just work across chains, I would say. And the UEVM thus represents both a technical and a philosophical advancement here too. It's about unification without forcing conformity. It allows chains to maintain their unique properties while still participating in a broader programmable ecosystem. And that's the kind of infrastructural evolution we need to move from fragmented experimentation to a more cohesive and accessible Web3 future. Alex, please correct me if I'm wrong because I can like think about it and think about it out loud. But if I'm saying something wrong, please correct me. I hope that before this point, everything was good in the thoughts that I've tried to explain to.
Yeah, no, everything is correct. Yeah, I don't know how else to expand on that. I mean, I think you summed it up pretty well.
All good, all good. Then, then we go to the next one. But listeners, if you do have some questions right now to Alex, don't hesitate to ask, because sometimes technical discussions can be a little bit um, a little bit hard. So we would like to reveal as much details as possible here. But on another note, I saw that DataChain recently integrated Coinbase on ramp. How does this integration enhance user experience and accessibility?
Yeah, so Coinbase on-ramp is pretty cool. Yeah, so just simply put on some of the core apps that got promoted, like Amana and Beam, as well as some other ones, instead of having to on-ramp or get Zeta from another provider, what you can do now is just click on Get Zeta and it'll redirect you to Coinbase on-ramp. And you can just do a small KYC, enter in your credit, debit card to get Zeta or some other assets without leaving the app.
That's good. That's I think there are a lot of enhancements from that integration, and I can see it as a strategic one and user centric too. Move that directly addresses one of the biggest barriers in crypto, like the fiat to crypto onboarding experience, because historically onboarding into blockchain applications has been convoluted. Users must first buy crypto on an exchange, transfer it to a self-custodial wallet, switch to the right network, and sometimes bridge it across chains. That's a multi-step journey full of potential friction points, especially for newcomers. And by integrating Coinbase on Ramp, I think that you guys eliminate much of that complexity. Now users can go from a fiat to a functional crypto within a dApp built on that chain. No exchange hopping, no external wallet setup required. This streamlines onboarding to a single step within the dApp interface itself. So that's a significant leap in usability and crucially inclusivity. It invites in a broader demographic who may be curious about Web3 but intimidated by its technical hurdles. For example, I think that's a very, very good integration. I will share it with my fellow friends who always wanted to be to do something in crypto, but it's for them it's really hard to understand what does it mean even chain. So I guess right now you're gonna solve some of my friends problems and I can onboard them as a newcomers to crypto to Web3. But to be honest, beyond the initial conversation here, there's also a long-term value loop that I can see. Once a user onboards like Coinbase into Zeta Chain, they can they gain immediate access to a range of universal apps and cross-chain functionalities too. So they're not just stuck on one chain with limited options. They're immediately plugged into a dynamic and multi-chain world. And that's a very different onboarding proposition compared to the usual buy Ethereum and learn the hard way. Moreover, on another note, this partnership adds a kind of a layer of legitimacy to you guys and strategic depths to the chain's mission. I think that Coinbase is selective in its integrations and their participation signals big confidence in data chain's architecture and future. It also opens the door to deeper integrations over time, whether that's staking interfaces, liquidity partnerships, or institutional grade custody. uh, but ultimately the integration doesn't just enhance user experience, it collapses the distance between fiat and function in web3. It's a win for ux, for adoption, and for the broader vision of making blockchain technology invisible to the end user, which is where the space must go to truly scale. And another kind of a partnership that I wanted also to highlight and reveal some details for our listeners, there was a partnership with Google Cloud as a validator, and it's really significant. What impact does this have on data chain scalability and security from your point of view, Alex?
I mean, yeah, we have a very large number of validators on Zeta Chain who are working to secure the network and yeah, who are working to secure the network and make sure it's decentralized as much as possible. I think Google Cloud just really brings that trust factor, and it's a reputable partner, right? Now we have the sense that, oh, now we have Google Cloud as a partner, and it brings a lot of credibility to everything that we've built and a lot of validity to what we've been trying to build in the past couple months, right? So starting off with the universal EVM, the native Bitcoin side, and some of the other recent developments that we've had. Having Google Cloud as one of our validators just shows to our users that it's not just a random chain, that we're actually starting to provide some value add. and it shows credibility and validity to our users that they can use our chain without, you know, without making sure, without having to check that it's some sort of smaller chain or there's some sort of issues with it. Um, I'm pretty confident that having Google Cloud as one of our top partners just brings that trust to users in crypto.
That's good. I love your concise answers, to be honest. But still, allow me a little bit to expand, expand it on my thoughts, and maybe summarize it for listeners too. Um, I think that like Google Cloud, you're saying, yeah, it's cool, but it's not just cool. It's really significant. Not everyone can do that, and you should be really proud of yourself. Like this inclusion of Google Cloud as a validator and that the chain is more than just a symbolic win. It's a critical infrastructure milestone that speaks volume about both the maturity and the ambitions of the network. So yeah, I mean, I'm raising both hands for this. Validators are the backbone of any proof of stake blockchain, and when an enterprise caliber entity like Google Cloud steps into that role, it reinforces the network's integrity, reliability, and long term viability. From a security perspective, like Google Cloud brings industrial grade infrastructure, redundancy, and uptime guarantees that significantly harden the validator set against outage and attacks. And this is especially important for Zeta Chain, whose role as a universal interoperability layer demands constant availability and reliable cross-chains message execution. Even a small hiccup in validation could compromise asset custody or interrupt cross-chain smart contracts operations. So the stakes are really high. And Google Cloud's participation also enhances the decentralization in a meaningful way. I'll explain what I'm trying to say here. Like while they are a major player, they act independently within the validator ecosystem, helping diversify the geographic and operational footprint of the network. It's like a reminder that decentralization doesn't have to mean anti-institutional, right? It means distributing trust across multiple entities, including those with proven reputations and resilience. And maybe on the scalability front, having Google Cloud on a broad offers tangible advantages. Like their computer infrastructure allows for high throughput, low latency processing, with which is kind of a key for data chains omni-chain functionality, as I'm understanding correctly. And the network grows to process more cross-chain transactions and support more universal apps, and this level of infrastructure will help ensure that performance scales with demand. And I guess furthermore, this partnership also exemplifies the merging of traditional cloud infrastructure and decentralized networks too, something that has been theorized for years but is only now becoming a reality. It points to a hybrid future where Web2 infrastructure and Web3 protocols aren't adversaries but like collaborators. So it adds also a momentum to Zeta Chain's thesis of being the connective tissue for all blockchains. If you're going to build the universal layer that ties together Ethereum, Bitcoin, Cosmos, and more, you need validator partners who can operate at a global scale, maintain security standards, and offer uptime guarantees. And Google Cloud checks all those boxes and then some. So in summary, it's kind of a foundational pillar, as I can notice as a host here, that strengthens not just the tech stack but also the brand, the trust model, and scalability roadmap for Zeta Chain, as it aims to become the universal blockchain infrastructure for the decentralized internet. But on another note, I've also mentioned at the beginning that you have already 8.5 million users, and when we were scheduling this podcast a while months ago, it was only 5 million users. uh with so with so large user base and numerous dapps deployed, what kind of strategies have been the most effective in driving data chains ecosystem growth from your perspective?
I really think there's several components to this. So I think there's one where it's how do we create sticky products, meaning how do we create products where users will come back and use these apps? So one of those flagship products are Zeta Hub. So Zeta Hub is our one-stop platform to do anything on Zeta Chain. You can send your assets, from one chain to a different chain. You can also be a part of our Quest programs, which allows you to earn points and get Zeta for some XP tasks as well, which is pretty much completing an on-chain task for certain partner projects. So this is an example of a sticky product where we have a lot of recurring users, and a lot of that is about 300,000 monthly active users coming directly from Zeta Hub. In addition to that, we have the games, which are also more sticky products, and then we also have our core DeFi focus, which is Beam, which is Amana, as well as some other apps that contribute to a significantly large number of transactions and users on Zeta Chain.
Magnificent. I didn't know about that. To be honest, when I tried to research your current tactics, so that's a good update for me and for our listeners too, because like this grows to over 8.5 million users is not just an accident, right? It's the result of a multi-pronged strategy that blends technical vision, grassroots adoption, and thoughtful community incentives too. One of the most like I think what you have, guys, is like one of the most pivotal strategies has been your early embrace of real utility in interoperability, like rather than just simply promoting hype or speculative mechanics. By building actually infrastructure that developers can use to create cross-chain apps, Chain positioned itself as a platform for serious builders, not just token speculators. And and let's not ignore your UX too, because Chain apps abstract away much of the technical friction that scares off mainstream users. You can use BTC in a DeFi app, vote with assets from multiple chains, or interact with protocols without switching wallets and networks constantly. That kind of a simplicity spreads by word of mouth, I would say, too. And in a space where growth is often short lived and airdrop driven, Zeta Chain's ecosystem momentum feels more rooted in substance. It's solving hard problems, supporting real builders, and cultivating a user base that understands the long game. That's rare, and it's why your growth appears not just rapid but resilient. And I can see that, and we will support you. Of course, and dear listeners, if you still don't follow that Zeta Chain official account, please do so to keep up with all the updates that Zeta Chain gonna reveal soon. But also, I'm interested, how do you guys support developers in building and deploying universal apps across these multiple blockchains? Do you have any kind of a programs for that?
Yeah, we have ecosystem grants for any new developers that want to build on Zeta Chain. Um, we give out grants and we incubate some of these core apps very closely. So if you're a strong team that's looking to build on Zetachain and you're trying to fill out a core ecosystem project and you have a very long-term vision for it, we have ecosystem grants as well as other programs once you get to a certain stage that we can help support you further.
Only grants, maybe something else as well?
Well, again, as I said, besides grants, if you're getting to a different stage of your project, so for example, your core ecosystem app and you have a lot of TVL, you have a lot of significant growth. I mean, we can intro you to some of our investors, we can help you raise, etc. So we kind of help incubate some of these projects as well.
Got it. Got it. Got it. That's good. You're offer very like impressively holistic support system for developers who want to build universal apps, and even if it starts with grants, you can also give meaningful connections regarding the incubation also that you've meant to. And I think it's also important to say that by combining kind of a powerful abstractions and real asset support, developer-centric tooling, active community engagement, the chain is setting you bar for what building cross-chain can mean. It's not just like interoperable; it's integrated, and that's what's enabling this new class of universal apps to emerge. So, if there are any developers listening, feel free to outreach to us or to Alex directly to apply for grants and for other support too, mentorship or ecosystem promotion for projects that align with your universal blockchain vision. Many devs get stuck not on the technical side, but on go to market and visibility. And I think that data chain actively helps solve that, connecting projects with partners, exchanges, and even other developers too. But I think that there's only one question left with which I want to torture you today, Alex. Just looking ahead, what are the key milestones or features we can expect from data chain in the next 12 months?
Yeah, absolutely. We have Sui and Solana coming up, so they'll be the next chains that are going to be integrated on Zeta Chain. You'll also see a number of core ecosystem apps going live on mainnet as well. One of them being a CDP stablecoin called BitSmiley, which allows the user to mint a BitUSD stablecoin by depositing native Bitcoin into several vaults and even other native gas assets as well. So it's truly a universal application. A lot of growth on the ecosystem side, more app developments, more apps going mainnet, supporting more projects closely in the ecosystem. On the protocol side, I just talked about the Sui and Telegram integration as well, which will go live soon. Yeah, and there's a couple of other developments as well that I don't want to hint at quite yet, but yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Things, I think that we can hear that there are going to be a lot of updates and we all going to watch them. The next 12 months for Zeta Chain are poised to be pivotal, moving from strong foundational building into widespread adoption and scalability. And there are going to be a lot of anticipated milestones I can see. While Zeta Chain already supports Bitcoin interaction, the rollout of fully productation grade omni-chains app that can use native BTC in real DeFi scenarios is a game changer, and that will open the door for lending, staking, cross-chain governance with Bitcoin, a functionality the ecosystem has long dreamed of but never quite realized. And I think that there are going to be also more significant updates, maybe on validator set and geographic distribution too. I don't know yet, but I'm just guessing, because this is not just about decentralization, right? For its own sake, it's about strengthening uptime, reducing attack surfaces, pivoting to both regulators and institutions that data chain can handle enterprise grade responsibilities. And the partnership with Google Cloud was a strong signal in this direction, and more institutional grade validators are likely to follow, to be honest, as I can see it. Maybe on the ecosystem growth side, that the chain has hinted at expanding grant programs too, university outreach and regional accelerator partnership. Who knows? We're gonna follow you. And these initiatives will fuel both grassroots development and academic research, fostering long-term sustainability. And I guess, guys, don't be surprised if we see Zeta Chain making moves into more regulated financial spaces too, because the ability to interact with native Bitcoin and Ethereum in a verifiable, transparent way positions it well for use cases in a decentralized identity, compliance, tooling, and even CBDC interoperability down the road. So I think that ensure that the chains next year isn't just about scaling what's already there. It's about proving that universal interoperability isn't a theory anymore. It's operational, usable, and increasingly essential. So the coming 12 months could very well solidify the chain's role as the connective tissue of the multi-chain future. And probably that's a wrap on today's deep dive into Zeta Chain, a project that's not just building another blockchain, but redefining how all blockchains can work together, from enabling smart contracts that command assets across chains to massive native BTC usable in DeFi, to launching a new breed of universal apps. ZetaChain is tackling some of the hardest, most foundational problems in Web3 with a clear architecture vision and growing momentum. So, Alex, if you have some final words for our listeners, feel free to speak out.
No, I think that's great. Thank you so much for listening. Feel free to use the apps on Zeta Chain to get a clearer picture of exactly how we're doing native Bitcoin. We have an ecosystem grant program as well for anyone here that's a developer that wants to build something great on Zeta Chain. We're always here. Yeah, thank you for tuning in.
Awesome. And I would like to extend huge thank you to you, Alex, for participating in our today's space. I hope that we can do more spaces together about upcoming updates. And At this time, we are at the point in crypto where the next wave of adoption won't come from more chains, but from better cohesion, fewer barriers, better UX, and uh, protocols that abstract away complexity without compromising sovereignty. And if Zeta Chains continues on its current trajectory, it may very well become the connective tissue that makes mass adoption not just possible but inevitable. And dear guys, if this episode got you thinking, building, or dreaming a bit bigger about what's possible in Web3, consider follow follow Cryptic, follow officials at the chain account, Alex Swan, mine if you wish, and leave us some comments, share it with your fellow enthusiasts. It really helps us bring conversations like this to more people. And I'm signing off for today. It was Polly Speaks, wishing you all the best
Awesome.
morning,
Thank you.
or evening. Yeah. Until next time, just stay curious, stay sovereign, and as always, build beyond borders. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, listeners. And Alex, have a good rest of the day. And ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.